two knives. Many moons ago, there dwelt upon the sloping hills, and in these pleasant valleys, a band of warriors known as the tribe of the Lemailampe. Many seasons had they followed the winding streams down its course, which was like that of great serpent, surrounded on all sides by the hills on which large timbers grew. Then it was Colina, chief of the birds. Call unto him Quicksepiot, the chief medicine man, asking for his counsel, and if the good spirits were in this place. Quicksepiot ordered the fire maker to inspect the fire. During this ceremony, the other braves and warriors watched with great interest, but with fear in their hearts. First Quicksepiot rose, and with his medicine stick and rattle made from the horn of the great white buffalo, he performed his magic, stooping to peer into the fire and to move his stick about the burning embers. Then there was great rejoicing among the tribe, and Colina, the chief, gave word that they might set up their wigwams in the new hunting grounds. Then it was Colina who called unto himself his two young sons, Nampeo the brave and Yonrehil the strong, both brothers of Wulisso, the handsome one. This was the day that they were to begin their ordeal as braves. Colina presented the two boys each with a knife. They were exactly alike in every detail. The chief then told his two sons that they were always to keep the knives, but they were never to be drawn except for two purposes. One, to protect the helpless, and the other, to revenge all wrongs. The two young sons of the chief were deeply impressed, and rising, vowed never to forget. The next day, Nampeo was to take his ordeal. Early in the morning, with nothing but his knife for protection and company, he left the camp by himself and entered the sacred forest and proceeded into its very center, where the clearing had been made long years ago for just such testing. Here he was to remain for 3 days without either bread or water. During this period, the brave were to ask Manito for some message to make him into a better brave. Standing in the center of the sacred circle, Nampeo raised his arms to Manito and offered up a silent prayer to the Great Spirit. Thus began the ordeal of Nampeo. All day he stood faithfully, and when night at last fell, he rested, but no message came. The second day passed, and then the third, but still no message came from Manito. Instead, a storm and wind and rain. At last, Nampeo offered up a twilight song and laid himself down. He closed his eyes. Far off it seemed there came the sound of drums. Suddenly the Indian boy sat up. He listened. It was the war beat calling the camp to action. He leapt to his feet. Should he go or should he stay? To leave his ordeal meant failure, yet the tribe was in danger. Like an arrow shot from a new-strung bow, he was off through the forest. Half stooping, half jumping he went, until he reached the camp of his tribe. The sight he saw caused him to gasp. The lodges of the tribe had been burned, the people massacred. Quickly Nampeo made his way to the lodge of his father, and there on the ground he found him slain, clutching in his hand a black feather. This Nampeo knew had been taken from the enemy. Only one tribe was known to wear the black feather. Nampeo took his father's bow and arrow. The feather he placed in his headband. Then he searched for his brother, but he was not among the dead. He must have been taken captive. Nampeo drew his knife. Raising his weapons and holding both hands above his head, he vowed revenge. Nampeo then became a lone and wandering brave. He wandered through the forest, the hills and valleys, ever in search of his brother and the tribe of the Black Feather. From tribe to tribe he went, and Nampeo became became known as the Lone Brave. He grew to be respected. He never killed a living thing. For food, he ate what he found growing on the floor of the florist. The animals became his friends, and if Nampeyo found some wild bird caught or snared, he'd take his knife and set the bird free. Many years then passed, and one day as Nampeyo was in the forest, he saw something. It made him drop quickly to the ground. He watched, and what he saw was a small band of 5 Indians each wearing the telltale black feather. His heart leapt. This was the enemy. It was a small hunting band loaded with meat and skins, and they had wandered far from their home tribe. Nampeyo followed until they made camp. When the hunters had eaten and darkness fell, they went to sleep. The Lone Brave crept in. Removing his sheath from its knife, Nampeyo raised it silently overhead, as if to ask the Great Spirit to sanction his deed. This was to be the first taste of blood for his knife. As revenge was the only thought on his mind, he plunged the blade into the hearts of one brave, and then quickly into another. Then lifting once again the dagger on high, he asked forgiveness for his deed, and crept away. At dawn, the band awoke, but 2 slept on. Fear then filled the faces of the braves, and leaving their trophies, they fled into the forest, and Nampeyo followed. At sundown, once again, the band was tired. They were a long way from their tribe. It was with some fear that they made camp. This time, a guard was posted. It made it difficult, but Nampeyo crept upon the guard, and as a panther leaps on its prey, Nampeyo leapt and drove his dagger deep and leapt away. The sound awoke the others, but it was too late. Only 2 were left. This was a game that Nampeyo liked. In his delight, Nampeyo forgot to ask forgiveness. The 2 that were left separated, but Nampeyo, seeing this, was not to be outdone. Fitting an arrow to the new string, he raised it, taking careful aim. The bowstring twanged. The brave fell dead. Only 1 remained. He fled through the forest, but Nampeyo was right behind. Through the dense and quiet forest they went, Nampeyo stalking the other brave with all of his skill until a clearing was reached, and the brave stopped to rest against a large tree, thinking himself to be hidden behind it. But Nampeyo saw him, and leaping around the tree met him face to face. Nampeyo lunged. How skillfully the other took his wrist, and with an awkward twist, Nampeyo lost his knife. Amazed, Nampeyo stood, eyeing his enemy. Who was this last brave who was his match? Nampeyo slowly picked up his dagger, and again lunged and fought, slashing and fighting until Nampeyo's hand was pinned beneath him, leaving him open for a stab, but none came. Blinded by hate, with a mighty twist, Nampeyo broke the hold, and snatching the other's knife with one hand, and his own with the other, was poised over the frightened brave. He drew both blades home, and stood, the victor. He raised his weary and blood-stained arms, clutching in his hand the 2 knives. Then he felt an unseen blow knock him to the ground. He slowly looked at the knives. They were identical in every way. Then in Nampeyo's mind came the overwhelming fact that this remaining brave had been his brother. Rising, he took one knife and threw it into the forest, and with the other held it high as he drove the blade home into his own heart and fell down, dead. A noise was heard in the forest. It was the noise of the braves. Nampeyo heard it and sat up. It was his father and brother and braves of the tribe. It all came to him. The message had been sent to him in the form of a dream. A dream and message from the Great Spirit, Manito. The braves had council in the sacred area, and Nampeyo told his father the message that he had received. Revenge was wrong. It was a brave's duty to help, not to kill. To give life rather than to take it, and let Manito give revenge. The chief rose. Nampeo was now a brave. He had received a message from the Great Spirit, and the braves rose in solemn gesture and lifted their hands to the Great Spirit, and in grave but joyous recession left the circle with this new truth in their hearts.